service in the outer boroughs, which often are economically disadvantaged, and this is actually a service that makes a difference for them. So it's certainly something to keep an eye out for. And I'm wondering if this can be, this might be better accomplished. It could also be accomplished through some of the incentive or fee structures that we've been discussing on this panel.
How about the equity question of the haves and have-nots, the urban areas who have ride-hailing services and the rural areas who don't have access to all these services? Should the government do anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think like the rural area is really difficult because of the non-sustainability of a shared model there, because of the difference between pickup. But in terms of income, it's been really interesting to see the changes in kind of what 2009 versus 2017, what's happened in terms of the income groups that are using shared services. So taxi use has always been kind of U-shaped in terms of income distribution. The poorest groups use it a lot, and the richest groups use it a lot. And I think with Uber, in terms of sheer numbers, the growth has been the most on the upper income side. But as a percentage growth, I think we've seen the most growth in middle income groups as well as suburban areas. Again, they're starting from a pretty low base, but this suggests that there's at least some expansion in the reach of the sort of populations that had access to on-demand mobility now than versus before. And this is borne out by some interesting papers that hit the Uber API to show just how much of the population was in about a 10-minute wait time of Uber. And I think, I saw one claim that it's a majority of the U.S. population at this point.
Did you want to say something, Paul?
That's good.
Okay, Mark?
Mark Finley, thanks to all the panelists for their great work and their great presentations. I've got a general observation on the whole conference that I'd like to get your perspectives on, which is this is a group of energy economics, and we seem to be kind of discarding the idea of an economy-wide carbon price as the method for taking these challenges on. And it feels to me like the tone of the whole conference has been, yeah, policymakers don't want to do that, so let's dive into these more sector-oriented,
suboptimal.
So my question is, help me think through how would I think about these policies for decarbonizing transport in a bigger context. And I'd welcome your thoughts on that. And if you think I'm just being unrealistic and idealistic, I guess I'd welcome that feedback too. Thanks.
Well, let me start by saying that, as you well know, Mark, the demand elasticity is such that you would have trouble with the carbon price really getting rid of a lot of travel and oil demand. So I'll just preface it with that and let the panelists speak.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think those of us working in transportation have always just had to face the fact that there's these very low elasticities, and if you start trying to do global pricing to make changes happen in transportation, by the time you've reached numbers that actually have an impact, you've presumably completely decarbonized everything else, and you have a lot of really angry travelers who haven't changed their behavior at all. I mean, Paul, I wanted to ask you, you said $1 per passenger mile. Is that right? For one of these policies?
No, I did.
What did you say?
I thought I said 10 cents.
Oh.
We were looking at 10 cents per passenger mile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
well, even 10 cents per passenger mile in a 50 mile per gallon vehicle is $2.50 a gallon equivalent, right?
Right, and my graph had the equivalent fuel prices above. Yeah. They're quite high.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking like big numbers on, and I don't know what that is on a cost per ton. It's got to be like $1,000 a ton or something that we're just kind of blithely talking about to try to get people to pool.
No, it's not $1,000 a ton. I mean, if it's $2 a gallon, it would be.
No, that's right.
200.
I mean, okay, several hundred. Right, yeah. Right, not 1,000. But and then on top of the price of fuel and everything else. I mean, another way to look at it is, and you just threw this out at me as we were walking up here today. If you include all of the monetary costs of a trip and all the time values of a trip, and you start to play with changing that, I've seen a few different studies that kind of suggest you might now be getting into elasticities that are bigger. If you can change a bunch of that stuff together, you might have a higher elasticity, maybe even close to 1. But But then time is a big part of that. So you want to make it faster for people, or you want to give them things to do that make the time costs go down. To try to do the whole thing by raising the monetary price is tough.
Yeah, all good points. Governor Ritter highlighted the inelasticity problem. Clearly, the elasticity of travel with respect to fuel price is much lower than the elasticity of travel with respect to vehicle miles cost. So there'd be more powerful effect. But what's the argument for doing something special in the transportation sector? Well, it's big and it's growing, so let's pay attention. But more than that, there's this sort of strong network effects, big infrastructural issues. A system evolves, and so arguably some policy needs to be done to avoid worst-case outcomes. But that still isn't entirely satisfying. So returning to your basic idea about appropriately pricing marginal cost, one of the big costs of transportation is congestion, and in our optimal price calculation, we take into account congestion, non-internalized safety, and non-internalized particulate type emissions, and those add up to quite a bit, in addition to climate and energy security, if you still believe in that as an issue.
Well, I'm afraid we're out of time. Let's thank our panelists for a good